All right, let's get into it. I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a world where the US dollar is like a museum piece. Your bank account isn't in dollars, it's in Satoshis. And your grandma? Well, she's explaining proof of work consensus to you over Thanksgiving dinner. Sounds like something out of a wild sci-fi movie, right? Well, for some people, this isn't science fiction. They think it's our actual inevitable future.
So today, we are tackling one of the biggest, boldest, and, let's be honest, wildest ideas in all of finance. It's called hyperbitcoinization. This is the ultimate dream for Bitcoin believers, a kind of prophecy that, if it came true, would force every single one of us to rethink what money even is. And I really do mean all of it. We're not talking about Bitcoin as some quirky investment you check on your phone. We're talking about it being the money you use for everything. You know, buying groceries, paying your rent, grabbing that morning coffee. It's a huge idea. And to even begin to understand how someone could believe this is possible, we've got to define the term itself. Okay, so this term was first thrown out there back in 2014 by a guy named Daniel Krawish. And the core idea is pretty simple, but also kind of bonkers. It's the theory that at some point, a huge number of people are going to have a collective aha moment. They'll realize their government-issued money, what the experts call fiat currency, is broken, and they'll all make a mad dash for the digital exit, right into Bitcoin. It's nothing short of a massive, voluntary global monetary revolution. So what on earth could trigger this great stampede? Why would literally billions of people just up and abandon the money they've used their entire lives? Well, if you ask the believers, it all boils down to a few key arguments. The case they make is actually pretty straightforward. They look at central banks and see them just printing trillions of dollars out of thin air, which slowly eats away at your savings through inflation. And then they look over at Bitcoin, which has this mathematically proven, unchangeable hard cap. Only 21 million will ever exist, period. So to them, it's not even a fair fight. You have one system that's unpredictable and controlled by a small group of people, and another that's transparent, run by math, and controlled by absolutely no one. That, they argue, is what you call sound money. And here's the game plan they imagine. It starts off slow, right? A few people, a few companies start putting some savings into Bitcoin as a hedge. That makes the network a little bigger, a little more useful. But then, bam, a major economic crisis hits somewhere big. Maybe hyperinflation spirals out of control. Suddenly, faith in the old system just shatters. And Bitcoin goes from being a weird investment to a financial lifeboat. At that point, there's a stampede to get on board before it's too late. It becomes this massive feedback loop on steroids. So it's a pretty compelling story, you have to admit, a full-on digital revolution. But there is a huge, glaring, elephant-in-the-room-size technical problem that's standing in the way of this global takeover. It's a problem of speed and scale. 7. That's it. That's the number of transactions the entire Bitcoin network can process per second for the whole planet. For comparison, Visa does tens of thousands. 7 transactions per second isn't enough to run the world economy. It's barely enough to run a busy lemonade stand. Exactly. How? It seems completely impossible. This slowness is actually a feature, not a bug. It's a trade-off for being so secure and decentralized. But it means that buying something can take 10 minutes or even longer to be final. How in the world could that replace the instant tap and pay we're all used to? Well, the Bitcoin world thinks they have an answer. Enter the Lightning Network. This is basically Bitcoin's much-needed superhero sidekick. It's what's known as a Layer 2 solution, which is really just a fancy way of saying it's another network that's built on top of Bitcoin specifically to handle all the little everyday payments. And this table really spells it out perfectly. Think of the main Bitcoin network as this huge, slow, but incredibly secure highway. Every single car, every transaction has to get on it. The Lightning Network is like a private express lane built on top. You and your local coffee shop can open a sort of bar tab with each other off the main highway. You can buy 100 coffees, and all those tiny transactions happen instantly for practically nothing. Then, only when you're all done, you settle the final tab back on the main highway. It's the clever fix that, at least in theory, makes buying a coffee with Bitcoin actually possible. All right, so we've got the grand vision and a pretty clever technical workaround. Case closed, right? Bitcoin's going to the moon. Well, not so fast. Let's bring it back down to planet Earth for a minute and hop over to the skeptics' corner. Because the problems with this whole idea are, well, they're not small. Yeah, when skeptics look at this whole thing, they don't see a revolution. They see a minefield of absolute deal breakers. You've got the insane price swings, the massive energy problem, the fact that governments probably won't like it, and even this weird economic idea of a deflationary spiral. Let's start with the one you've probably felt yourself, the volatility. And that is barely an exaggeration. We've seen Bitcoin's price swing by 20, 30, even 50% in really short periods of time. A functional economy just can't work like that. You can't have the value of your money jumping around so much that you don't know if you're rich or poor from one day to the next. It makes planning anything absolutely impossible. And then there's the energy issue. It's colossal. That proof of work system, the super complex math puzzles that keep the network secure, it uses a truly staggering amount of electricity. We're talking more than entire countries. Now, the supporters will argue that it can be powered by green energy, but the critics look at that and just see an environmental nightmare, especially if it were to scale up to global levels. Honestly, this might be the biggest roadblock of them all. Governments get a huge amount of power from being able to control their own currency. The thought that they would all just stand aside and politely let a decentralized computer network take over their job is, well, it's pretty optimistic, let's just say that. It's way more likely they'd fight back with everything they have: regulations, taxes, maybe even outright bans. So we're left with two completely opposite visions of the future. On one side, you have the true believers who see Bitcoin as the natural, inevitable next step for money, a perfect, incorruptible system that's destined to save us all. And on the other side, you have the skeptics, who see a volatile, inefficient, and totally unrealistic digital fantasy. Let's just break it down one last time. Believers say it's sound money that finally ends inflation. Skeptics say its fixed supply could actually be a bad thing, leading to a deflationary spiral where nobody spends money because they think it'll be worth more tomorrow. Believers see it empowering individuals all over the world. Skeptics see an unavoidable war with governments who will never give up control. The future of finance, or just a massive energy hog? It really, truly depends on who you ask. Ultimately, this whole theory of hyperbitcoinization is about more than just a financial prediction. It's really a question about what we want our money to be. Do we prefer the kind of flexible stability that's promised by a central authority? Or do we want the rigid, predictable scarcity that's governed by computer code? Is this the inevitable future, or is that dollar bill in your pocket safe for now? The jury is definitely still out on that one.